would stay here. And so many memories connected with this room. And it's so amazing that we got permission to celebrate his 71st appearance day in this very room. And I'm sure it will be a wonderful event. So we'd like to thank everybody for coming, attending the program. So I would first request His Grace Chitta Vrata Prabhu to say a few words in glorification of His Holiness Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. There's another mic or same?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji's. I guess I have heard about Tamal Krishna Goswami many years before I actually met him personally, because I joined in 1972, and but because I was on the West Coast, I guess he was on the East Coast, so our paths never really crossed. I may have seen him at the Atlanta, Georgia Gopurnim Festival in 1972 on the road show, but just from a distance, and I was too new of a devotee to appreciate or know anything. I remember Vishnu John Swami. Anyhow, after I served in Los Angeles for a couple of years, I went to New Vrindavan for a couple of years, then I moved to Hawaii, and there I married a Mataji from the Philippines, and she was from a very rich family, and her parents wanted to help us get set up materially. We were just like, I was not even an American citizen. I was from Canada. Anyhow, they helped us set up a business, buy a car, get a house, everything. And then one day she calls us and she says, oh, my freezer is broken. I'm going to bring the meat and put it in your freezer. Yeah. So that night, I decided, this is what we're selling out our soul for. That night we were gone, flying into the U.S., and then we went to India. And we arrived in Vrindavan when Prabhupada was there in 1976. And we had like $40 in our pocket. That's what we came to India for. But back then everything was very cheap. For 200 rupees you could rent one room for a whole month. So anyway, I helped Dhananjaya do his Mukut business. Umapati was the Umapati Swami. He was not Swami, but he was the treasurer for that business. And I remember I was very friendly with Shruta Kirti, who's like an ocean of mercy. And I told Shruta Kirti that my wife needed a second initiation. So if you could ask Prabhupada if you could initiate her. So he just went there without formality. Prabhupada said, somehow I panhandle a quarter, and I call the temple, and it's Tamal Krishna Goswami that answers. And I tell him, oh Prabhu, we just came back from India. You think you could send somebody to pick us up? So he sent a van instantly, and they took us to the temple. It was like a 12-story building they had just acquired, and he personally waited for us, and he gave us the grand tour of the entire building. We were just two insignificant devotees, that nobody knew, And he showed us the first floor, which was the restaurant, beautiful. Everything was first class. I mean, even nowadays, nothing comes up to that standard. The first floor was the temple room, beautiful deities. a devotee had painted murals of all the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya on the walls. I guess he was using a projector, and with airbrushes, overnight he could paint an entire wall, you know, like very expert. And then third floor, there was like a stage for performances where they would have plays, and then the third, fourth, fifth floor, they were like brahmachari ashram, and 5, 6, 7, 8, it was like brahmachari ashram, then 9, 10, 11, there was householder ashram, and then the 12th floor was Prabhupada's quarters. He showed all of the floor after floor, you know, it was just very impressive. So anyhow, then I got a service in the restaurant helping the cook. His name was Vishnu Gada, probably one of the best cook in this movement. He could make these preparation called eggplant parmesan, slices of eggplant dipped in pakuras, deep fried in ghee, and with layers of cheese and tomatoes, and he would make sweet and sour and meat eater's delight. These were names that Prabhupada had given the preparations, because you know they were all first class. So anyway, my service, I was making the samosas every day, but I did not even make the filling. Vishnu Gada made the filling, and all I did, I would roll the dough and stack it up. There must have been a lot of ghee in that dough, because you could stack it up, you know, 8 inches high. I would put it in the freezer, and then just when it's time to make the samosas, I would make the samosa and deep fry them. And the secret was that the dough was frozen, and it had to take 20 minutes in the ghee to cook. So every day, Tamal Krishna Goswami would come, and he would have some of the samosas, and he would tell me, Jiravrata, you make the best samosas in the world. Every day he would tell me that, even though I only made half of the samosas. But that was the secret, the frozen dough and the 20 minutes in the ghee. They melted in your mouth. Anyhow, so then we moved on. We went back to Hawaii, and after many years, I had some young children I wanted to take to the Gurukula. So I decided, well, I didn't want them to go to a Karmi school. So by the time they were 2 and 4 years old, we're going to go to some Gurukula. So we decided to go to Vancouver, because I heard there was a Gurukula in Vancouver. And when we got there, there was a nice Swami. His name was Vipramukya Swami. He was like a notion of mercy for the young devotees. You know, he was like kind-hearted, just a shelter for all the young devotees. And when I saw him in a distance, I saw this devotee that we had just kicked out of Hawaii, some crazy person. But he was a devotee, but he was a crazy. And I pointed to Vipramukya Swami, oh, Prabhu, oh, this guy is crazy, you know, you shouldn't be letting him come around here. And because I spoke bad of a devotee, he never spoke to me again. So there's our mission of finding the Gurukula there was over. Just might as well pack up and go, because you get the cold shoulder from the Swami. He was the heart of the temple. So we decided, okay, let's go to Alachua. So it was like cutting across the cake of America. And we said, we'll stop in Dallas, because my best friend was there, Sri Rag. Probably some of you know Sri Rag. He lived in Mayapur for 4 years, from 2007, 8, 9, 10. And my youngest son lived with him while he lived there. Anyway, he was a Hawaiian devotee, and I did a lot of work with them in Hawaii. So we had to stop and say hi to Sri Rag. So when we arrived in Dallas, I had never seen that type of weather where it's so hot, you know. I was from Hawaii. When I left Hawaii, I was thinking, good riddance. I'm leaving the heat behind. So we arrive in Dallas, and you put your hand out of the window of the car, and it burns because it's so hot outside. So when we got out of the car, I decided, told my wife, okay, let's just say hi to Sri Raga and let's get out of here. But Sri Raga, his arm was in a sling, and I had never seen him like this before. Sri Raga is like a Superman, you know. He's a kung fu master. In Hawaii, he was taught the art of kung fu by an old Chinese master. And that master used to tell him, oh, you chant Buddha, well, he said, you chant Krishna, because he knew he was a Hare Krishna. You chant Krishna when you do your sets, you know. I chant Buddha, or you chant Krishna, you know. So he had mystic powers. Like in combat in Hawaii, in a competition, the people that would fight against them, they would hit so hard, but he would just block, and you would hear their bones crack, you know. It was just that kind of strength. And in Hawaii, Srirag joined there. He's the one that got the respect from the local people, because in Haridam, he would always get in fights with the big Hawaiian people, the big ones, literally rolling on the ground. And at the end, they would realize, wow, this person is very special, because in many situations, he could have broke my fingers, he could have ripped my arm off, but he was kind to me. So they all became his friends. And they got respect for the temple. From that point on, we never had problems with the local people. And I know Tamal Krishna Goswami used to use Srirag and fly him all over the airports, all over the world, the nation, to protect the devotees that were doing Sankirtans in the airports, because many situations it was very dangerous. So when I spoke with Srirag, he convinced me to help him with all the projects that there was at the temple. The temple was like booming. They had so many homes that needed remodeling, and Tamal Krishna was living there, so I decided, okay, I'll stay. So that's where my children ended up going to Gurukula. And I remember Tamal Krishna Goswami, he used to invite us, Prabhupada disciples, to lunches quite often. So the first time I went, I was like in awe at the community in Dallas, because the devotees were so nice, you know. They were all, the majority of them were disciples of Tamal Krishna Goswami. And at that meal, I just remember glorifying him, saying, how wonderful your devotees, your disciples are. I've never seen a group like this, so staunch, you know, such pillars, and so dedicated, and so nice. And because to me, Dallas was like a hell, you know, compared to Hawaii. But because the devotees were so nice, it was like Vaikuntha. So after I spoke my heart like this, all Prabhupada's disciples look at me like, what's wrong with you? You know? But at least I got to speak to Maharaj my heart, you know, like, I guess from being from Hawaii, I could appreciate some really good devotees, you know. So, but after a few meals, Tamal Krishna Goswami, he would be very critical of his health. You know, like if something was not quite right from the kitchen, he would let them know. And I was feeling, oh, this is difficult for me to stomach, that I have to face. Like I felt bad for the devotees being criticized like this. But then after a while, when I start speaking with them, I realized they actually all enjoyed being chastised by Goswami. You know, it's like to them it was, everyone would come up with a better story than the other, how my chastisement was much worse than, you know. But they all, and you could see that actually the reason why all his disciples were so good, because they were able to take chastisement. You could chastise them and they could get better, you know. So it was a wonderful community. And I remember, you know, I guess it was difficult for Maharaj to relate to me, because it's not really sure what I am. You know, I mean, either I'm a Sudra, or I'm a Brahmin. One day I'm on the altar, the next day I'm in a sewage or under a house fixing some plumbing. So, but somehow or other, he always tried to relate to me. Like I remember one day he gave me a very rare book of how to build a Rath Yatra cart that a devotee in India had put together. And every morning he would chant his rounds at the temple room with us. I was there for the last 8 years of his life, so every day he was in the temple room chanting his rounds with us. And I remember his biggest pet peeve is that someone would walk up and down chanting really loud right in front of him. He was just, that would bother him. But over the years, I guess as he was getting cancer, his back was hurting, so he had to put a pillow behind his back as he was sitting. And I remember one morning, someone was cooking in the kitchen, which was right behind what the altar is. It was an Indian boy from Gujarat, Ishan, his name. And because he was cold, it's inconceivable that in Dallas you could be cold, but he's from India, a very hot part of India. He was cold, so he wouldn't have turned the blower over the cooking. So the smell of the cooking could come into the temple room, and Tamal Krishna Goswami was very upset that everybody could smell the cooking before he was even offered. So he gets up and he goes into the kitchen and finds out what's going on, and the devotee tells him, "Oh Prabhu, I'm too short, I cannot reach the switch." He was a short devotee. So Tamal Krishna Goswami comes back in the temple room, gets me in the kitchen. We had just remodeled the kitchen. We had put brand new granite all over the floors, all the walls. And he tells me, "Jita, I want you to move the switch down." And I just blow up and say, "Maharaj, there's no way I'm moving that switch down. You know how much work that would be? It's incredible, We have to break the granite off the wall, and if he wants to reach the switch, he can just use a spoon." It was not that high, But the true reason is that devotee was cold. Instead of telling him the truth, he told him, "I cannot reach the switch." So here we are in the kitchen, just like arguing it out. And after that, every time Maharaj spoke with me, he would always put his white gloves on. He was an expert manager, It's much easier to tell somebody, "Hey, do something," and you don't have to put your gloves on and it gets done. But with me, puts his white gloves on and says, "Okay, Jita Vrata," he'd be super nice to me. Anyway, and then once in a while, he would call me in his office for one reason or another. And this time, he had brought a newspaper from, I guess someone brought it from London. It was a two-page advertisement. They had found a very odd-looking picture of Tamal Krishna Goswami where he looked dazed. And in big letter it said, "Well, no wonder he's looking dazed, with all the money he's making and that he's banking." This is a big newspaper article in London. So he's showing me, like, what should I do about it? And the moment I looked at it, the picture was so funny, I started to laugh. I said, "Oh, Maharaj, this is so funny, Where did they find this kind of picture? It's got to be Photoshop or something, And I said, "Who's going to take this seriously?" I said, "Don't worry, Maharaj. Tomorrow is just going to be wrapping up some fish, So he never thought about it again, ever. Anyhow, by then he had cancer, but the whole time I was there, he was also going to the university. He was getting a big degree in religion. He was going every day in a dhoti, tilak, everything. He got a lot of respect from the university. Anyhow, when he got very sick, there was a Mataji Kirtida, Mother Kirtida. She helped him. She was a super nurse, that she was top nurse in America, actually. She was such a top nurse that all the surgeons that used her, they would only use her. So she would work 24 hours a day practically. And she didn't even have time to eat properly. And over the years, because she would just drink a Coca-Cola, all her insides were destroyed. And she ended up having cancer of this and that and this and that. And because she had millions of dollars worth of insurance, medical insurance, they removed everything. The only thing she had left was her esophagus. Yeah, and she had to feed herself intravenously. And after they used up all her insurance money, they told her, "We're so sorry, you have 1 month to live and good luck." And that's when she joined the movement. And when Tamal Krishna heard her condition, he says, "Well, you better move to Vrindavan and live there and die there." And she lived here. When she moved to Vrindavan, she lived for 10 more years, and she just started eating normally, even though she had no stomach, nothing. And she lived very nicely for 10 years. And then eventually her cancer came back, and Tamal Krishna Goswami asked her to go to Dallas to pass away there, to show as an example. Anyway, she helped him through his ordeal. And you know, some people complain he had a lot of money, but he did not even have the money to go to the hospital and get the surgery. So one of his disciples, who he had named Dhananjaya, he had a very big business. He put up most of the money, you know, to pay for it. And somehow or other, he got the best doctors, and he beat it. But all these years that he was struggling with it, he was preparing for death. You could see that how, like, as he would walk also around the temple, around the block of the temple. I live in one of the houses there. So I would see him chant his rounds also around the block. And he would stop and he looked at me. I would be cutting the bushes. He said, "Jita, how you do it? You know, with all the chiggers and the mosquitoes and the heat, you know," because he cannot understand that. I guess when you become pampered, even at one little mosquito in the room, that's what he was telling me. One mosquito in your room, all hell breaks loose. You know, you cannot tolerate. You know, so he was always try to look up to me like, how can I be so tolerant? But for me, I was just like just a thick skinned Sudra. I didn't feel anything, you know. Anyhow, then I noticed as he was walking around the block every day. Sometimes he'd be walking with another sannyasi, and at a distance, when he would see me, he would pay his obeisances. You know, imagine, he's like top guru in the movement, sannyasi. He's elder to me for so many years. I mean, insignificant, and he's still paying his obeisances to me. You know, such humility that I never see. It's just, you know, to me that's is the most striking quality that I found in him, is his humility. You know, and also how he prepared for dying. You know, for all these years, and then when he died in a car accident, I figured that would have been the same time that he would have died naturally from the cancer. But the cancer is such a horrible disease. It's such a horrible way to die, you know. It's such painful, and so Krishna took him nicely, you know. But he was prepared to go, you know. Anyhow, we miss him, and he would be 71 years old now. Time really flies. Yeah, just take advantage of your life. Your life goes by like this in a flash, you know. Just hang on to Krishna's holy name. Jai Hare Krishna.
In my first week in the temple, I managed to go out on book distribution and do quite well. And the next weekend, the Radha Damodar bus came into town. And Tamal Krishna Goswami and Vishnu Jan Goswami, they brought me out onto the bus. There was me and one other young bhakta. I'm 22 years old, kind of old, I guess, for back then. 22 years old, and I've been a devotee for 1 week. And I'm sitting on this bus, and Tamal Krishna Goswami gives me this amazing speech designed to have me stay on the bus and travel as a brahmachari and be saved from this. No. So I hear this beautiful talk, and it's very, very convincing. I'm totally appreciating everything he has to say. Just fantastic. I'll be saved. I'll be able to just be free and distribute Prabhupada's books everywhere and never have to worry about anything. I'll be totally taken care of. I mean, this just the best. If he was a used cars salesman, I would have bought the car. But unfortunately, he was telling me to go on the bus and leave my hometown and travel. So I hear this whole beautiful talk. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. So I hear this whole talk, and I'm swirling, my mind's swirling. You know, it's, wow, feels really like feel special. He made me feel like I was unique and special. And then Vishnu John Swami, his partner, they almost play like a good cop, bad cop type situation, right? He starts a bhajan, and he hands me, I think it was bells or something to play. And he starts singing, and it's just so, it's Vaikuntha. It's just like oh, this is so wonderful. I want to be a part of this, but I don't want to leave Philadelphia. So he finishes the whole beautiful bhajan, and I'm part of this bhajan, I think anyway. I'm ringing the bells, and I'm chanting along with him. And Tamal Krishna's chanting, and this other bhakta, he's chanting. We're all chanting. It's just wonderful, absolutely blissful. This is spiritual life at the top most. So at the end of it, they say, so, Bhakta Joe, are you ready to come along the bus with us? And I said, no. And Tamal Krishna's face went like, and he was just glaring at me, and I was confused. You know, it's like, I guess I was supposed to say yes, but I don't want to go. So he says, okay, you can get off the bus now. And I exited the bus. And I thought that was the end of it. Unfortunately, every time I saw His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami, he gave me dirty looks. He never forgot that I said no. And I actually had a little bit of association as a humble servant, never anything special. But he would send his group of Radha Damodar traveling distributors to temples that I was in a couple times. And every time that they would show up, I would always think, I'm not going to let those guys beat me in distribution. This is my temple. I risked his wrath to stay in Philadelphia. You are not beating me. So that would be the case. And if I absolutely put on my best show, I would manage to come close. I never actually did beat those famous book distributors when they would come in. But every time they would read the scores out in the Philadelphia temple, there would be like Vaisheshika Prabhu, 250 books, Tripurari Swami, 300 books, Jivanath, 212 books. And he would turn and he would look at me. And he did it every time. I could never get over this. This is for years. He would just turn and he'd glare at me. And I was thinking, golly, if I could take it back, maybe I would just go on the bus. Because those glares would hurt. I would actually go like, well, you know what? It's my temple. I'm not going to let you beat me in my temple. But that actually was my only real association with Tamal Krishna Goswami, was on that bus. And then probably, I'd say, 7 years worth of glares. Because I saw him in numerous temples, and he never, ever did anything but glare at me. So, thank you, Maharaj. That's it.
Very significant, and I feel totally disqualified to be here glorifying Maharaj. Maharaj always has been a hero for many, many devotees who join Srila Prabhupada's movement. Every time we read about Srila Prabhupada, it's almost practically impossible to not hear about Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and vice versa. Every time Maharaj will give a class, immediately he will bring Srila Prabhupada into the picture. He will talk Bhagavatam, he will talk Prabhupada, parallel. So, the first time I read about him, I thought, I want to be like him. I want to be a servant like him. And he produced this book, Servant of the Servant. If anybody wants to truly be a servant, that's the book to read. However, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was or is an extraordinary, totally extraordinary person. This morning he said that Krishna puts his greatest devotees to the greatest test. And although I had the opportunity, I saw him a few times here in Mayapur, the late 80s. I was always in awe of him. Such a strong personality, and many, even of his god brothers, as Prabhu was mentioning, right, had sometimes a sense of, you have to be careful when you're around Maharaj. Yeah, okay, you said it. So that was Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and we read from the early biographies how strong and determined he was. I don't even want to go there to speculate what his identity or true identity is, but definitely he's eternally connected with Srila Prabhupada. One time in '89, Gorpurnim, there was a feast here in Mayapur, and in those days, the sannyasis, the leaders, will take prasad in the long building, I think first or second floor. So there he was, and that was my opportunity to serve him. And I thought I came as a servant of Jayapataka Maharaj, and I thought I was a good servant, and I was surrendered and dedicated and committed and all the rest. And there they were, all the big sannyasis, gurus, swamis, GBCs of ISKCON lined up, sitting on the floor in the long building. Nitai Chand Maharaj at that time, I think, was a Mayapur director or temple president or something. So my opportunity came, my chance came to serve Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and there were some chips put on his plate, Ekadasi feast. And I came with a tomato sauce, and I put it on top of the chips. And that was the end of my proud career as what I thought a good servant is. He gave me the sauce, really. I mean, it was like, if you imagine those movies when some big guy is beating a little one, and he was really giving it to me. Who do you think you are? Do you have any idea what service means? Going on and on and on. And I was just frozen. I was just, you know, I'm dark skinned. I was pale, I guess. I felt my knees were trembling. I didn't know if to jump or run or disappear. So my Guru Maharaj was sitting maybe 3 seats away from him, and he came to my rescue. I mean, he just put his hand, he says, he's okay, he's with me, he's one of my assistants. And that was it. Tamal Krishna Maharaj just kept on. I never forget that. So, yeah, he lived here, and sometimes we will run errands. Jayapataka Maharaj would say, go and tell something to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, or ask him. And I would say, not me. I'm not going there ever again. So I was very, very scared of him. However, I remember that dreadful day when the accident happened, and Kurma Prabhu, the famous Prabhupada disciple cook, he called me. We were living in Australia, and he called me. He says, you better sit down, because I'm going to give you a news that it can knock you off your feet. Then I thought something happened to my Guru Maharaj. And then he told me what had happened that morning. And I remember that, although, you know, when your false egos get hammered and bruised, you hold a distance from people. But I remember how strongly I felt that this is a great, great loss for our movement, because here it is, a walking example of what Prabhupada preached all his life. He preached to be totally surrendered to Krishna, totally surrendered to Guru, and there he was. That was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. No extras or minus. He didn't need to be exaggerated about who he was and how he behaved. And the more that we read about Prabhupada's pastimes, we see how Prabhupada definitely used him as an example for all of us. Maharaj also mentioned this morning in the class how he became perhaps the greatest preacher after Prabhupada when he had the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. And he had many, I don't know how many buses, 4 buses or something like that, and a bunch of book distributors, the warriors of the army of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who were cleaning up, from what we read, America and distributing hundreds and thousands of books everywhere and making devotees. It was like a machine making devotee program. And Prabhupada told him, I'm going to take everything away from you. Everything away. He had power, he had money, he had influence, and he took everything away from him. And I was just thinking about this morning when I heard that, or remember that pastime, how many people have left this movement with a fraction of that? Somebody treated you badly, looked at you badly, talked to you harshly, made some politics or some arrangements that you didn't like. Oh, I leave this movement. However, Maharaj stayed. Not only that, but Prabhupada sent him to China mission. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj remains a hero for us in ISKCON. As I said earlier, every time we think about becoming the servant of the servant, Tamal Krishna Maharaj definitely is the personification of that in terms of Prabhupada's teachings. And one last thing, remember I was reading that when Tamal Krishna Maharaj took Srila Prabhupada to Rishikesh, a few months before he left, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Prabhupada, one day he stood up and he started cooking himself. And I think it's Bhakti Charu Maharaj tells us a story. And Prabhupada was teaching him, I don't know what it was, chapati, something they were cooking. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj had the habit, from what I read, to say when Prabhupada was there, I know. And then he said like that, I know. And Prabhupada got so heavy on his case, so heavy. And then I thought, when I was reading this passage, I thought, here it is, one of the biggest sannyasis in ISKCON, Prabhupada's indisputable right hand, and Prabhupada is chastising him like a young bhakta. And he will just take it. That's it. That was the mood. I'll send you to the moon. One time Prabhupada told him. And I'm sure that if he would have said that, he would have arranged something. That was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So, very happy and thankful for the opportunity and grateful to be amongst all of you glorifying Maharaj. I hope he forgave me for the mistake, serving him wrongly. But I just wanted to assure him that I'm trying to be a good servant of the servant. Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki. Yeah.
Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Picharani Nirvisesha Sunyivari Pasyatya Deshatarani. Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Tamal Krishna Goswami Iti Namane. This one is Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ki. So, at least for us, at least for me, I would say, very fortunate that we have this example of Tamal Krishna Maharaj service to Srila Prabhupada. I joined in 1974. And of course, I read the books, and that was my great inspiration to be a devotee. Then after joining, seeing the devotees doing their service, that inspires you even more. So Tamal Krishna was always in the forefront in those days. And I'm sure everyone's read that book, Servant of the Servant. Raise your hand. Servant of the Servant? No. If you haven't, you should get that. It's in the database, as a matter of fact, so you don't even have to buy it. And another one, Radha Damodar Vilas by Vyasa, those two books. And Tamal Krishna is pretty much, of course, the key in all those. And you see how he's serving Prabhupada. Sometimes we think being serving a guru simply means, Guru, tell me what to do, right? I'm surrendering to you, now what do I do? And I'll just do it. That's nice also. But if you have a little intelligence, that's even better. So that you can know what to do without the Guru having to tell you. So some of the key moments in our movement, at one time, of course, in the early days, they're doing Harinam, but there's no money. So he mentions how they had to get jobs. And he was thinking, why should we waste our time on jobs? So during the Harinam, he figured out how to really sell incense and back to guided magazines in such a way that the devotees didn't have to have jobs. If you just did very good Harinam and some little technique that's there, everything is like that little technique. Some other key moments, we can go on for hours, I'll keep it short. At least for me, is the Prabhupada's main mission was, of course, to print these books in all the languages and have them distributed all over the world. So the printing is going on, and it required probably, I can't remember, maybe 10,000 big books at a time to get a decent price. But we're not selling 10,000 big books in a month because no one really knew how to sell them. In those days in the West, people didn't appreciate anything that was not American. So if you went out as a devotee, who cared for you? As a matter of fact, they had the opposite effect. They want to humiliate you. So if somebody could sell 1 or 2 big books a day, that was considered a grand success. But he pushed the envelope a little bit, devotees, because Prabhupada was showing, why are they not taking my books? He didn't tell us directly how to do it. It was expected for us to figure out how to do it because he wanted it done. And because we are his loving servants, we have to figure out how to do it. So I think at one point they started, I might be wrong in this timeline, you might be able to correct me on it, but we have here this Vishwambar Madhava Maharaj is here. He used to be Mahamantra. We were on Radha Damodar for a while together. And Tamal Krishna decided, instead of sending everyone together on Harinam, let's put them in regular dress and put them in the parking lot by themselves. So Mahamantra and I can't remember his name. He's in Philadelphia now. No, with a G. Anyway, I'm old. I can't remember. Anyway. These 2 devotees, Tamal puts them in a parking lot with incense and small books. And he comes back at the end of the day to pick them up. And they do very well. You can imagine if they didn't do so well, maybe they would, who knows what would have happened. But they did very well. So then they used that as a model for everyone else. So Radha Damodar really became the first party to start really selling a lot of books like this. So then the other temples began to, also imitate that. We start putting on regular clothing and being a little more aggressive in our book sales. And in India also, he was, especially in the 70s, Prabhu, I guess he'll talk about that. That's, to try to get something accomplished in India with the government was impossible, I guess. And you read all those stories, how Tamal was, somehow or another, due to his perseverance, he could get a lot done, but he didn't like to be in India. And he somehow or another convinced Srila Prabhupada to let him go back to America. And that's when he connected with Vishnu Jan Swami again, who was doing more or less, his program was, he had Radha Damodar deities, very beautiful deities. You've probably seen pictures of them. And they would take them on the street with an altar and sit them there. And they do full deity worship right on the street. And you can't imagine that, huh? They have artik, they make an offering, they have plays, they do kirtan. They take the prasad off the plate and distribute it to the people walking on the street. It's like the temple was right on the street. So this was his style of preaching. And Tamal, of course, began to introduce the book distribution part of it. And then at one point, they were getting pretty successful. They began following the, what do you call it, the state fairs. And in the United States, there's 50 states, and each state has these, what they call the state fairs. It's a big, anyway, a big event. They would go and rent a space and do their whole show, sell books, sell prasadam, and they were making money. But the one thing they were not doing was making devotees. And Tamal Krishna realized that we have to make devotees. So sometimes we think making devotees just means you can just kind of go out there and just talk to whoever. But he was very targeted. He realized in this particular university, he can make a lot of devotees. So he split the party, and he went back to that university. And he made, I can't remember, anyway, something like 10 devotees. By this time, Prabhupada's coming back to America. And he knows Prabhupada's going to make him go back to India. So, anyway, by this time, he's got enough devotees. And they go to see Prabhupada. When he comes into the room, Prabhupada immediately tells him, I want you to go back to India. I want this Bombay project finished. You have to go back. I need you there. This is a very key lesson. Just imagine if you're just a humble servant. Okay, Guru Maharaj, yes. But he was able to, you know, work with Prabhupada in a sense. You know, I mean, I couldn't do anything like that. If Prabhupada said, stand on your head, I just do it. I wouldn't, you know, why or anything like that. But he's intelligent enough to know how to work with the Guru. And he's like, well, Prabhupada, I'm preaching in America. And he says, Prabhupada immediately says, well, what is the result of your preaching? What is the result of your preaching if you're just going around? So he calls in the 10 new devotees. So Prabhupada had to relent. Okay, you can stay. He had to surrender to it. You see. So they had that kind of a relationship. Everyone couldn't have that kind of relationship with Prabhupada. You can hear some stories of devotees meeting Prabhupada. Hari Sari tells one of how he was very sick, and he didn't want to massage Prabhupada in that condition. So the only person he could find that he felt was competent to do it had never been in a room with Prabhupada before, but he was going to try to massage Prabhupada. And when you meet Prabhupada, you know, especially for the first time, you can imagine you're going to be very nervous. So as the devotee walks in and his hands are shaking and he's sweating. And he's like, no, he's not going to let him touch Prabhupada. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't put himself in the right mindset to give that massage. So Hari Sari just did it himself. So to me, that example of serving at that level with the Guru as a surrendered servant, and at the same time being able to maybe disagree, give some contrary advice, but at the same time be able to know when to surrender and not become offensive. Because even Prabhupada said the two most dangerous services are being a pujari or personal servant of the Guru. Because you can become familiar and make an offense, and then you're finished. So therefore, you should generally, you know, be very careful in those things. You know, especially with Guru, it's not so nice to always just be hanging around your Guru. You may take him as ordinary man. So he's very expert at that, and we can go on and on about his glories. He's done so much for this movement, very monumental things. And to me, I'm most appreciative of that book, Servant of the Servant. I give that to everyone to read, especially new devotees. I tell them, if you want to know what it means to be a disciple, then you read this book. You know, you'll get a good understanding of that. I'll give two very short pastimes that I had with him. I mentioned I joined in 74, and I saw Prabhupada in 75 for the first time. And after seeing him in the airport, Prabhupada's coming for the first time I'm seeing him in Darshan in the temple room. And this is the Evanston temple at that time. So you can imagine, you know, of course you're in great awe and reverence. You know, I've been serving for a while, I've read the books. And you're just, you know, here's the object of your love and affection in front of you finally. And I'm standing at a position so as the entourage is coming in to pay their obeisances to the deity, that I'm right in the front, sort of, in Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I guess he saw me with some enthusiasm, and And he gave me Prabhupada's shuttering cane to hold. So therefore, I was able to get into the entourage also with the devotees, back behind Prabhupada and Tamal, Vishnu John, and all them. And I'm right there with Prabhupada. And he's walking up to Gaura-Nitai's altar to offer his obeisances. So previous to that, somehow or another, this talk that came out, they were telling us how to behave when Prabhupada's in the temple. And I remember there was some instruction about, do not touch Srila Prabhupada's feet. I think they took that instruction a little bit too far, because in India, Prabhupada had mentioned he didn't want these non-devotees touching his feet because he gets sick and then he can't translate. So they were telling us, do not touch Srila Prabhupada's feet. And so anyway, we're thinking, okay. But now I'm in this entourage with Prabhupada, you know, and we're going up to the first altar, and the temple room was very packed. Prabhupada pays his obeisances and all the sannyasis, but I can't because there's just no room, and I'm just standing there holding the shuttering cane. And I see Prabhupada full out, and his feet, of course, are sitting there. And all of a sudden, the voice in my head begins to talk. You should touch his feet. And, you know, of course, I touch his feet. Are you crazy? Can't touch his feet. They told us we're not supposed to touch his feet. And this little conversation is going on in my head, but, you know, you're going to be getting initiated tomorrow anyway. So what's the question of he's going to take all your sins at that time anyway? You should touch his feet. But we're in front of the deities. You can't touch his feet in front of the deities. You know, I'm having this whole conversation in my head like this. And his voice has just convinced me. And he says, well, if you don't touch his feet, you're never going to get this chance. I said, but the devotees are going to see me touching his feet. No, they're not. They're all paying obeisances. How are they going to see you? You know? If you don't touch his feet, you're never going to get this chance again. I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. So we go to Kishore Kishore's altar. And everybody, you know, goes down. Prabhupada goes down. And there's very little room. I'm right at Prabhupada's feet, and he's flat out, barefoot, feet, bottom of his feet. So I take my head, and I just gently, I very quick, try to gently just touch my head to the bottom of Prabhupada's lotus feet. So I don't know how many devotees got to do that, but I did. Very soft. I know, so soft. So as I'm coming up, somehow or another, Tamal Krishna got up before I did. And I make eye contact with him. And I have never seen such fiery eyes. He gave me that look like I would kill you right now if I could, but Prabhupada's here. And he snatched that shuttering cane away from me. And I just kind of looked at him like, what can I do, you know? I mean, we're new devotees. We don't get mercy like that. You got to take it when you can. Prabhupada didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. So, and then last pastime is, this is after Prabhupada passed away. And of course, Chicago in those days had O'Hara Airport, whereas Prabhupada used to call it Hare Krishna Airport. And everybody wanted Chicago. It was a great place to sell books. Nice big Indian community, Gujaratis. So, and somehow or another, there was always a fight over that zone. And Tamal became the GBC of Chicago, finally. And we had, Tripurari, so all the big devotees were there. It was perfect in a sense. But he decided at that time, he wants to, now we got to do what Prabhupada wanted, the next thing, Varnashram Dharma, I guess. So he decides, okay, all the householders have to get jobs. In those days, if you're a householder, it didn't mean you had your house and all these things. You would get married, and you would live in the brahmacharya ashram, and your wife lived in the brahmacharini ashram. That's how you lived. And you get permission from the temple president to take prasadam together every now and then. That was household life, right? So pretty much you're living like brahmacharya. My wife's going on book distribution, I'm doing book distribution, treasury work. And he calls us all in, okay. The whole Varnashram speech. Now the householders have to get jobs. I didn't get a job. Why do I want to get a job? I'm in a temple. I left the university to, what kind of job am I going to get, And many people were revolting, getting upset. Is it okay? Anyway, I talked to him individually about it, and he was really, no. And I go, fine, I'm just going to surrender. Because in those days, we knew we were supposed to cooperate. We still had a cooperative mood. So I just immediately got a job driving a taxi. That's something you can do in one day. And he was very proud of that. I couldn't believe it. I could see he was because I think I was the only one who did it. Everybody else left, And then later on, all the controversies, we won't get into that. Finally, the GBC took everything away from him. When he got the order to go to China, he didn't go to China then. They took everything away from him again. I think it was 79 maybe. And told him, you're going to China. You have no more zone. You have nothing anymore. And I went to his room and I talked to him. I was really surprised because he's a very big personality, very powerful. And I was shocked. I was asking him, how could you let them do this to you? You're Tamal Krishna Maharaj, And he looked at me with such seriousness and he told me, they are my God brothers, and I must cooperate. And that always stuck with me because I wasn't, I'm still not that cooperative, but just that spirit that he had, that he could humble himself and recognize what he should do. And of course, as a result of that instruction, now, we have all these Chinese devotees here. So who knows when that would have happened. Such a powerful devotee that you see the effects even to this day when he's gone, that in China the movement is, I think, from what I see, growing very nice and making such nice devotees. So anyway, I'm very grateful for the association. I did get a little bit. Got to travel with him sometimes, and more importantly, his example of practicing Krishna consciousness, and also his example of pleasing Srila Prabhupada. That's always been our desire, that somehow or another, let me render some kind of service that Srila Prabhupada will come and say, thank you very much, Sikhi Mahidi. Isn't it? That's what we want to hear. That's how you know Krishna is pleased, when you see Guru is pleased. So His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ki.
Thank you so much.